So there was a crazy guy that went on a mass stabbing event, and he stabbed 2 Jewish people. And if you listen to the media and the way that they covered it, it was like a guy that was perfectly sane and went on a rampage against Jewish people, specifically because he was pro-Palestine. Except it turns out he also stabbed a Muslim person too. And yet I didn't know about it until after I read beyond the headlines, because the way that they covered it, the way that they have covered this guy is that he's like a pro-Palestinian guy who just went out and sought out revenge.
The 45-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder and remains in custody following a checkup at the local hospital. He has a history of serious violence and mental health issues, and that investigation continues. Let me say a few words about what this was. Let me be clear. This is an attack on one community. An attack on one community is an attack on all London's communities. This was an attack on Londoners. It is an attack on British Jews. Too many Jewish people in this country feel they have to make choices that no other Briton ever has to make.
That's also kind of crazy to say, because right after Keir Starmer came into office, I recall there were literal directed pogroms against all refugees in the country, specifically against Muslim refugees in the country and anyone who looks to be Muslim. So the idea that this is like the idea that the hate crimes only go in one direction is crazy, when they were firebombing hotels that there were known refugees staying inside of those hotels. They were literally throwing Molotov cocktails at the exits. We watched it unfold. The idea that this is exclusive to Jewish people in the UK is crazy. The UK is incredibly violent and incredibly racist towards anyone that they consider at any given moment to not be fully British. Of course, Keir Starmer's response to that was to lean into the demands being made by those who were, committing pogroms, and to say, we don't want an England where we don't know our neighbors, right? A restrictive anti-immigration policy, rather than trying to tackle this issue at its root cause, which isn't even to combat the hatred and extremism necessarily, which they tried to do as well to a certain degree, but it's more so to tackle the underlying social services that are in a dire state of disrepair, that has caused people to lose their minds and assume that the reason why they don't get the proper healthcare treatment from the NHS is because of migrants, not realizing that it is the migrants that keep the NHS operational. So it's actually the opposite in that circumstance, because once again, fascism, white nativist anti-migrant sentiment, which is fascist, which is reactionary in nature, this kind of ideology is suicidal. It's self-defeating. The story is the same. It's always the same. First comes austerity in the interest of capital. Then comes privatization and diminished quality services, more expensive services, less reliable services. That frustrates the population, the working class. And then right-wing forces take advantage of that frustration, that anxiety, that animosity, and redirect that frustration to migrants, leaning into the idea that these foreigners that you don't know are coming in to ruin this country. And people believe it. This is an endless feedback loop. The solution to that is to say, no, these guys are just your neighbors. They're not any different than you are. They have the same class interests. We must solve the underlying problems in British society. All of this, of course, ironically enough, dramatically escalated after Brexit, which was following the same exact trend. This guy had a history of stabbing. He stabbed 2 cops and a dog before 2008. He was in psychiatric ward, but they let him out, which hasn't been disclosed why. He stabbed a Muslim not long before he stabbed 2 Jewish people. He was someone who needed help, but the system failed him, and the system caused these stabbings. I mean, yeah, this is a direct byproduct of cutting some of these social safety nets, for the record. Like, this person should be in an involuntary hold. Like, he's very clearly, he should be getting the necessary medical treatment, or he was supposed to be getting the necessary medical treatment. And yet the system is collapsing, and he was out and about with a knife, and he did these heinous acts of violence. And instead of addressing the root cause of this problem, this incompetent government will turn around and say, oh, this was motivated entirely by the Free Palestine movement, you know? And that's why we have to make sure that you can't say Free Palestine. We have to have even more strict speech rules.
They have to make choices about how they dress, where they go, or how visibly they live their lives. That's completely unacceptable.
This, by the way, ironically enough, is an identical pressure for Muslims in the UK and Muslims all around as well. Like, that's what's so crazy to me, at least. Like, in my analysis, in my interpretation, everything he's saying, you could just say about, you know, Muslim people living in the West, and it would fit so perfectly. This isn't to say that like Jews in the UK don't have these similar fears. I believe they do, but it blows my mind. It blows my mind that this only goes one way. Like, all of these institutions only care about it in one direction and actively foment it in the opposite direction. And to make matters worse, Keir Starmer is utilizing this as an opportunity to punish pro-Palestinian speech.
Now, when I did see Zach Polanski come out and retweet,
he's also using this as an attack against Zach Polanski.
Or support a criticism of that, I think it's disgraceful. I think it's disgraceful.
Zach Polanski is the leader of the Greens, okay? And the Greens have been blowing up and eating away at Labor's unpopularity. A lot of people are leaving the Labor Party to join the Greens. Zach Polanski, Hasan Abi head, is incredibly woke. Okay, he's incredibly woke in a British way, though, and sometimes when you're that woke in a British way, you make missteps. Zach Polanski also happens to be Jewish, for the record. Okay, just so you guys understand, which, you know, plays a role in his coverage in the coverage of Zach Polanski, which is crazy. If this depiction of a Jewish politician that is pro-Israel was done by a pro-Palestinian newspaper, they would arrest the cartoonist. Okay, this would take up headlines for weeks. But of course, because Zach is Jewish, who happens to be anti-Zionist, then obviously you can do whatever the you want to do. You can depict them any way you want to depict them. Yeah, it's the Goyim blaming a Jew for anti-Semitism, by the way. That's what's going on, literally. Keir Starmer and many others are playing fast and loose with tropes, with depictions, and also claiming that the anti-Semitism is directly associated with the pro-Palestine movement, and Zach Polanski is responsible for the anti-Semitism.
I have no doubt in my mind that those officers probably thought their own lives were at risk. And if you see the footage, there's a lot of people in the scene as well. Now, that didn't turn out to be the case, thankfully. But this is the thing about policing. And I learnt it firsthand in Northern Ireland when I was working with the police over there. I sat in the control rooms when they were making decisions about operational matters. You have to make a decision in a split moment according to the situation as you understand it to be. And for politicians to wade in, as Zach Polanski did, is disgraceful. He's not fit to lead any political party.
Yeah, Zach Polanski retweeted something that was critical of the way the police dealt with it, apparently, because they were like kicking the dude after he got tased, which, you know, optically speaking, isn't the greatest approach to the subject, right? Maybe a little too woke for British society's taste. They kicked him on the head like 5 times. Zach was not wrong. They made a decision to kick him on the head 5 times while he still had a knife. Only a third Jewish community officer thought to disarm him first. Yeah. Keir Starmer thinks a retweet should disqualify someone from leading a political party, but that appointing the best pal of the world's most notorious pedophile as ambassador to Washington shouldn't. Be serious, says Aaron Bastani.
Almost every weekend, it's easy to find a pro-Palestine march, even if it's a smaller one, like this in Lewisham, southeast London. Some hold these marches responsible for the troubling rise in anti-Semitic attacks and abuse. And the Prime Minister has said marches could be restricted.
When you hear some of those chants, globalise the Intifada would be the one that I would pick out, then clearly there should be tougher action.
Oh, God, shut the up.
People in the Jewish community have said to me, it's the repeat nature, it's the cumulative effect. Now, I accept that, which is why we intend to deal with cumulative effects.
I think it is time to ban these marches. They are trying to let people know that there is support for harming Jews. We need to make sure that that is stopped completely. Otherwise, we're going to continue seeing horrific events like we saw in Golders Green this week.
Some here understand that call for restraint.
It's horrible to think that any community anywhere is living in fear. And if a small...
Dude, the UK is abysmal. It blows my mind that instead of hearing the voices and the chants that demand an end to the bloodshed that Israel has committed, their response is, well, this hurts our feelings, so you should just shut the fuck up. And if you don't shut the fuck up, we are going to force you to shut the fuck up. Not realizing that this only will galvanize the movement. This will only push people further and further into taking action. Let's take a look at the reactions so
My
far.
freedom to go on a demonstration supporting the Palestinians be curtailed because of recent events.
I think your right to protest should be maintained.
Full stop. Don't go any further. Don't go any further.
He's right. Yeah, but for the record, I don't think Zach Polanski should have tweeted that. I don't think he should have tweeted that or retweeted that. It's not like a super significant offense at all, and I think they're going to use anything and everything they can to attack him, and that's precisely what they're doing. It's like totally cynical. However, it's, you know, they're going to use like that against you. You know, I don't really care that much necessarily, but this is, you know, you're Corbyn now. You're under the crosshairs. They're going to come after you for anything and everything. For those who are wondering whether there would be an attempt to Corbyn Polanski, the only Jewish party leader, here's proof. They're saying it out loud. Nigel Farage, it's clear that Zach Polanski is a pound shop Jeremy Corbyn. His party must never be allowed anywhere near the levers of power. Of course, they're fearful. They're afraid. They're truly scared of a rising left flank, a true left political party led by, being shepherded by a true left leader who isn't anti-Zionist, and that's precisely the reason why they're doing it. And only in the UK would you expect a Nazi-adjacent politician like Nigel Farage shit on a Jewish party leader, and then the overwhelming majority of right-wing media, which is British media, is terrible, will turn around and agree with the Nazi-adjacent party leader. And we'll say, yeah, this Jew is responsible for the rise of anti-Semitism. Yes, he's doing it Jewishly. The perfidious Zach Polanski must be stopped before he dangerously increases anti-Semitism. I, Nigel Farage, will put an end to his Jewish tricks. It's incredible. Polanski's Greens are a party of poison. Times of Israel. Israel's deputy foreign minister, extremist UK Green Party leader, legitimizes violence against Jews. Ay, ay, ay. What a time to be alive, man. What a time to be alive. I will say, however, once you come out swinging, if you're going to say, like, look, I'm glad that the guy is apprehended, but, you know, we have standards. We're not America. That's what, in his shoes, that's what I would say. I'd be like, look, we got standards. We're a civilized nation. We're the United Kingdom. We're not the United States of America. What the fuck are we doing? If we allow this to happen, who knows? If we don't make sure that you know, proper protocols are followed in all apprehensions, no matter how heinous the crime is, then we're going to let this go, and sooner rather than later, we're going to turn into the United States of America, right? Like, if you say that, you got to stay on it. If you back away, which Zach Polanski did, he apologized from what I understand, then you've given an opportunity to the reactionaries to continue pushing, right? Breaking, Zach Polanski has apologized, but once again, he's under tremendous pressure, right? Yeah, he apologized for sharing a post criticizing the Met police officers at the Golders Green attack. Everyone in leadership is responsible for lowering the temperature at a time of such tension, and I apologize for sharing a tweet in haste. Police response to emergency situations such as these do need later reflection of the right forms, but I accept that social media is not the appropriate channel for doing so. I've invited Mark Rowley to meet with me to discuss the police response and the wider issues raised in his letter.
Caveats, sir. There are caveats. For instance, the caveat about where you can protest and what you can say on those protests are legitimate caveats to put in place, I think, given what has happened. So
Caveats over what?
Caveats over what you say and where you say it.
And what comments can I say and what comments can I not say?
I think the Prime Minister is right to say talking about globalising the Intifada is a call for action against Jewish people, for violence against Jewish people.
He's wrong. He's completely
Right.
wrong.
He's wrong.
Let him try and test it out in court. It is completely wrong. Globalize the Intifada means shaking off. It doesn't mean
shaking
no,
off.
No. Hold on. Yes, it means shaking off.
It means continue the struggle. Like, that's it. There are similar struggles all around the world. Like, it's an uprising. Continue the uprising. LBC callers are so fantastic all the time, by the way. Respect to the LBC callers. I myself became an LBC caller at one point in time, and it was great. Yeah, it means continue fighting for freedom. Perfectly understandable sentiment. I'm not sure Zionists quite understand the implications of the way Candace Owens dismantled Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire, but they are profound. Zionism is done on the right. It's just a matter of time. I think Candace Owens did play a big role in this. I don't know if she was single-handedly responsible for the demise, though. The UK government and the manufacturer of blame. Keir Starmer and his government exploiting an act of violence it failed to prevent in order to criminalize dissent, scapegoating protests rather than confronting its own negligence, incompetence, and appetite for repression. Chris Kunzler, our boy, in the UK doing the work. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
Then there is no way you can understand how insane the last 2 days have been, because our government is currently trying to ban yet more protests and marches, and their justification is an attack that was carried out against Jewish people in London 2 days ago. And they say that it is the protests and slogans at the protests that radicalize the man to do this. But this stands up to absolutely no scrutiny, because on the day of the attack, the man literally targeted one of his friends called Ismail Hussein. He tried to kill him too. But even worse, back in 2008, this man had already stabbed 2 police officers and a police dog. He went to prison for it. In 2020, he was referred to the extremism watchdog Prevent. Also, just before the attack, he was receiving treatment for mental health issues. His friends said that he was dangerous and scary to be around, and yet he was just out on the streets. Our government wants you to believe that protests that started back in 2023 and have dwindled both in size and frequency are responsible for this. It is genuinely unbelievable. It doesn't stand up to the most basic scrutiny.
Yeah. It's clear that they're using anything and everything they can to just be they want the pro-Palestinian protests to stop. They think that if they get the protests to stop, that the discontent will go away. And their way of doing this with the Palestine with the Palestine Action protests as well has always been to just criminalize it, and that hasn't really led to a significant. That hasn't really led to a diminishing impact on the intensity, the severity, the frequency of the protests, as far as I understand. And that certainly hasn't changed people's attitude towards Israel. If anything, it makes them more annoyed. It makes them more angry, more frustrated with the way that Israel not only continues to do a genocide with impunity, but then also gets to dictate what happens in their domestic affairs. Unbelievably frustrating for the average person. So I feel like it's just brushing this issue under the rug instead of addressing it, instead of trying to find solutions. It's very stupid.
It's not long after the march begins that the familiar, controversial chant rings out.
From the river to the sea, a lot of people...
The man with the microphone didn't want to talk. He was busy.
I've heard chanting from the river to...
Oh, from the river to the sea. Don't you feel like this is a dangerous chant? Bro, you know what's dangerous, buddy? 2,000-pound bombs. You know what's dangerous? The Royal Air Force giving the Israeli Air Force targets to strike, which happens to be mosques, which happens to be civilian sites in Gaza. That's the real danger. It's not dangerous to call this behavior out. It's not dangerous to oppose this. Our priorities are so out of whack, man. What's dangerous is selling the weapons to the Israeli state, weapons that they use to commit genocide, weapons that they use to turn Lebanon into Gaza now. It's not the words opposing this violence that is violent itself. It's the violence itself.
To the sea. Yeah. A lot of people would say that is an anti-Semitic slogan.
Well, they say it is, but they know it's about everybody who lives in that region having living under democracy without any kind of apartheid regime or anything like that.
Other people interpret it as wiping the Jewish state of Israel off the map.
I don't see why there's any need for anything like that, why you would actually interpret it that way.
So this is obviously a small-scale protest, but what Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, is talking about is the cumulative effect of having march after march on the pro-Palestinian cause.
There have been 34 national-scale demonstrations since October the 7th, 2023. Their organisers reject claims that marches lead to anti-Semitism.
Our stewards, when they see inappropriate slogans, intervene and ask people, we don't have the force of law, ask people not to use them, and by and large, they comply. So we have to be absolutely clear here. There is no threat whatsoever to the Jewish community from these marches. In fact, they are attended by thousands of Jewish people.
Many who are part of that community disagree.
I think most people would accept that the sheer frequency of these pro-Palestine marches, the intimidation that is effected on the small Jewish community, and other factors such as the arrests and the state of our society now for Jewish people, all cause a reasonable judgment to be made that these marches should be stopped.
They won't stop here in southeast London or on streets up and down the country unless the government intervenes and decides the balance between freedom of speech and the safety of British Jews.
Brother, this has nothing to do with the safety of British Jews, man. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? Oh, it disrupts it hurts the feelings of people that want to defend their, like, emotional support apartheid state. That's crazy. That's crazy.